Hi, today we're going to be grafting medlar, and so I start with rootstock and medlar cuttings. So medlar is a medieval fruit that has fallen out of favor and people have just started growing it again, so we're going to use that to figure out what they taste like. So the rootstock that we're using here is Purus OH F97, and that's a pear rootstock, but it works perfectly well for medlars, which are a member of the pome fruits. You can also use hawthorn as a rootstock, but it suckers quite a bit. So we're going to go with the OH F97. So first of all, I prep my rootstock by snipping it, and I go about 8 inches above where the soil line is going to be, 6 to 8 inches. This one's going to be a little shorter. So I snip that, and we're going to be doing the whip and tongue technique today because our whipstock is about the same diameter as our rootstock. So when that's the case, it's really convenient to do a whip and tongue. When the rootstock's a lot bigger than the whipstock, then you'd use something like a cleft graft. Now in this case, what I do is I cut off to make sure I have 3 to 4 buds. Now you can see the buds, they're these little things that stick out the side. So I've got about 6 on here, so I've got ample buds. At the top of the part that I cut off here on my scion, the whipstock, I go ahead and put some grafting wax on top. Now I'm ready to make my cuts. I actually use a scalpel for these cuts because I find it works better for me. So I just want to make a wedge. And it's going to be a wedge that's about 1 to 1 1/4 inch long. The main problem is keeping everything flat. Okay, and so I've got a nice wedge here. Now I do the same thing to my scion. And you have to whittle a little bit. Mostly you just want to make sure and keep your blades straight. And notice I've got a bud on the outside. I did that intentionally because I want to put the buds on the outside in case those buds decide to go ahead and bud out, or you've got a lot of differentiable cells around the location of the buds so that you can form any type of cell that the plant needs to survive, be that vasculature or actually a fruiting bud. So what I'm doing now is I'm making a vertical cut, and I'm doing it gently by rocking the blade. You don't want to put much pressure on there because you don't want to go down and cut your finger or make too large of a cut. And so I just rock the blade. I started about 1/3 down the wedge, and I cut to about 2/3 down the wedge. And now what we'll have are 2 puzzle pieces that fit right together. And you can kind of wiggle those together. And let's see if there's a better way for you to see. Okay, so on the side where we match up about perfectly, right? You can barely even tell where one starts and one stops. The reason I do that is so that the cambium, the outer layer of the bark, matches up so it can flow water and nutrients upward toward the scion. On this other side, we don't get quite as good of a match, but that's okay as long as we have a match on one side. That's what's important. Now finally, we go ahead and secure this graft with grafting tape. Now the trick to grafting tape is to pull it out, to stretch it first before you start rolling it on. And it's let's just say it's a pain, but you get the hang of it eventually. So you keep it stretchy and you can actually use its binding powers to keep that graft tight. The other thing it does is, of course, it keeps moisture in the rootstock and scion because you've just done some major transplantation surgery on this plant. So it's got to keep all the moisture it can. Eventually those roots will flow moisture up, actually pretty quickly once they wake up, and that'll help supply moisture. And in fact, in the graft, you'll usually see water. After a few hours, you'll see water collecting where you've covered over the graft, and that lets you know that you're keeping moisture in the system. So that's good. And we'll just go ahead and put our tag. This is a Pushio Medlar. So whatever the heck that is, I guess we'll find out in a couple of years. So we look forward to seeing how well this works, and we'll be doing some other grafting videos to show you other techniques. Thank you.